The comeback story of No Man's Sky is pretty well known at this point. It's a far cry from where it was back in 2016, where, if you'll recall, it did launch in pretty rough shape. But update after update, they just kept going and eventually grew into one of the most ambitious and rewarding space games that's really ever been made and has continually been made. They're still making updates for this game. And here's the really funny thing. In all those years I've been making videos on it, I never once did a proper new player guide. So when Hello Games reached out to do a sponsored video, I thought, perfect. It's probably about time I make one in 2025. So then this is for those of you guys looking to get a fresh start in the game, or maybe those of you who are looking to come back after a really long period away. Especially since they just dropped a new update called Voyagers that allows you to build a custom, medium-sized ship that you can fly around with friends. What? So check the link in the description if you guys are interested in dropping back in and you don't have it yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you through basically the first hour of the game while adding a bunch of things that I wish that I knew when I first got started years ago. Stuff that you probably would only learn after playing many hours and that are just gonna make your life a little bit easier. It's gonna make things go more smoothly. But what I'm not gonna do is ruin any of the story for you or make you follow it like you gotta follow it on rails. The point of No Man's Sky is wonder and exploration. If you gotta pause the video and go wander over the next hill and find something cool over there, you go do that. That's actually what I want you to do. And then when you're ready, come on back and I'll take you through more of what you need to know to get started. And if by the end of the video you think I did a good job and deserve it, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to show your support. So what we're going to be doing for this guide is we're going to be following the built-in in-game tutorial. That way you can put this video in the background or on another screen while we go through it as I add on to what it already tells you to give you some of those pro tips I just mentioned. Now when you start a new game, or if you're coming back to start one, you're going to have to select what type of game mode you want to start with. For me, I'd recommend that you just select normal. There's a lot of different modes here, but if you're just getting started or you're coming back, don't give yourself too much stress here. You can actually go and change the difficulty later if you want to make things a bit harder for you, but personally I've found that normal is plenty difficult once you get into the later games. So with that out of the way, once you start into the game, you should discover that the game has literally thrown you into the fire. It looks like No Man's Sky, since it first came out, has changed the way its tutorial works a little bit. Now they put you on a specific type of planet, one that will nearly kill you, but won't completely destroy you immediately. It just kind of gets your feet wet, but instead of water, they're on fire. Though there may actually be water on your planet, it just depends. Everybody's starting planet is different. So the first thing it's gonna want you to do is to get your scanner back online, because without it, you're basically blind in this game. It's your companion throughout the entire thing. So in order to get to that step, you're gonna wanna start training yourself to look around you and scan your environment visually. Look for things like rocks and plants. Rocks are what's gonna give you ferrite dust, which is what you need to craft the component to repair the scanner that the tutorial is guiding you to do. Once you've gotten that thing repaired up, you should be able to hit C on PC or D-pad up on your controller to ping the environment, which is gonna highlight resources, buildings, and waypoints that are surrounding you in your immediate area. Now initially, since your scanner is low level, it's not gonna give you a huge range around you, but as you upgrade later, you'll see more and more. Now, almost immediately, your hazard protection will also start draining. Like I said, you're on a kind of bad planet. So what you're gonna have to do now is you're gonna wanna use your new scanner to ping your environment for something called sodium, which is marked by the Na diamond. So if you were looking to practice a little bit for your chemistry class, I think actually No Man's Sky is a great way to study. So if you're still in school, hey, this might be for you. But if you're a chemist, you're probably gonna be like, yeah, this is nothing. I know everything. Anyway, while you're scanning, you'll also notice that you can't continually hit C. That's because the initial scanner you get without any upgrades is gonna have a pretty long cooldown. So you might have to wait a little bit to scan. And remember that wherever you hit your ping, it starts from you at the center point. So if you keep traveling forward fast, you're not gonna see what's in front of you until you scan again, basically. So then the next thing you're gonna wanna do is recharge your kit with what you just picked up, that sodium. And what you can do is you can go into your inventory and drag and drop it onto your hazard suit. But what you might not know is that you can actually do this much more quickly by hitting X on your keyboard for PC or down on the D-pad for your controller to open the quick menu. Here you can select recharge and select the system that you need to recharge. In this case, like I said, it's your hazard protection system, and do it really quickly. This is actually really useful to know when you're in a pinch. Say for example, you're being attacked or your suit's about to run out and there's a storm coming. This is the fastest way to do it without going and faffing about in your inventory. So just remember that for later. And since you're covering a lot of ground here, there's another big tip here that I want to give you guys that only pros will know. It's melee boosting. Now, in order to do this, you're going to want to sprint forward by holding Shift or L3 on the controller, and then melee using Q on PC or right bumper on your controller, and then immediately afterward hit spacebar or A cross to use jetpack. If you've done all of this right, you can pause the video for a moment if you need to. I'm doing both PC and controller. I know it can be somewhat confusing, but basically you're sprinting, melee, boosting all at once to get yourself a huge boost forward, which will propel you across the landscape at insane speeds. Just make sure that you save enough booster to stop yourself from splattering against the ground. There is gravity on most of these planets. Now, once you've got all the basics of survival squared away, the tutorial is going to lead you to your very first starship. And you might be really excited, but you're going to find out soon that it's actually on fire, like your feet are and everything else is. The good news is that fixing it's going to teach you the basics of crafting and ship repair, so going through this guide is actually very important if you've forgotten everything or you're new to this. So to continue forward, open your inventory, tab on PC or Options/menu on your controller, and click on an empty slot in your suit inventory to craft the needed parts. Early on, that means a hermetic seal and metal plating, but you won't be able to craft the seal just yet because you won't have the blueprints for it, but metal plating should be available to you right away if you've gathered enough ferrite. The game will guide you to the other missing pieces eventually. Now, at this point in the guide, you probably will have run into a bit of a weather problem. Like I said, this is a harsh planet, so you're going to want to find a place to hide for a little bit if a storm rolls over. If you stay exposed during this time, you're going to have to recharge your hazard suit much more quickly, and if it's a really bad storm, you might not be able to recharge it in time, and eventually you're going to die. So you can either keep recharging it if you've got enough sodium, or you can find a place for shelter. Usually these come in the form of caves or even buildings, and if you're close enough to your ship, you can jump back into your cockpit. However, later on when you get the terrain manipulator, you can carve out your own bunker in the ground, which is a great place to hide, not just from storms, but also from things like aggressive animals and later sentinels. But don't anger those guys just yet. It'll mess you up pretty bad without a weapon. You shouldn't have a weapon just yet. The game should then send you off in another direction to get your analysis visor up and running. You're going to have to do that by finding carbon, which comes from plants mostly, which you can turn into nanotubes, which is what you need to craft your visor. With it installed, the game changes dramatically. You're going to be able to start spotting hidden caches, artifacts, buried technology, and more importantly, it becomes a steady source of income. Something the game doesn't tell you is that scans actually earn you units, and uploading discoveries earn you nanites. These are the two most important currencies in the game, at least early on, for you to make your character more powerful and allow you to travel the galaxy more easily. And pro tip here, if you scan before you mine, you should get more resources out of what you're mining, so if you're mining something that's not been fully scanned yet, make sure you do that first. Now, since you're going to be trekking across the landscape, you want to be using your scanner for what the guide tells you, but also keep an eye out for something called buried technology modules. These contain salvage data, which you can use to sell for quick units or to trade for blueprints. You'll usually also see some flaming wreckage nearby, which can be used to get some extra nanites, so keep your eyes open for that at all times. Nanites are more valuable than money actually early on because you use them to buy upgrade modules, things that make scanning faster, your jetpack stronger, or your weapons more effective, and ultimately it makes it so you earn money more quickly. So that's why I think nanites are actually more important, because you get the money better more quickly with more upgrades. Another pro tip here, wreckage often has slime blocking it. Don't delete it. Instead, drag it into your inventory, and later when we make the portable refiner, you can craft these into nanites. It's one of the easiest ways early on to farm nanites up much more quickly. If you don't want to keep it though, you can just hold your middle mouse button on PC or R3 on your controller to discard it and free up some space. You'll also often run into something called knowledge stones, which are, depending on the solar system affiliation, going to teach you a word in the language of the local faction. This is something that I personally skipped early on and I regretted it later on, so I'm going to tell you now that it might not seem that important, but if you do come across these, make sure you learn as many words as you can because these actually help you improve outcomes for trading and navigating story missions and other side missions later on. You can also learn more words by just speaking to NPCs that you come across in stations, outposts, or just out in the wild by asking them for dialect help. You can also use that opportunity to give them any artifacts you found, which will increase your faction standing with them, which will help you unlock better prices and items in stations and outposts that are affiliated with the faction. Next though, you should be now getting to crafting your first refiner. Since we've been talking about refining, the tutorial will teach you how to craft a portable refiner, which takes metal plating and oxygen to construct. With it, you'll be able to refine ferrite dust into pure ferrite, copper into chromatic metal, and yes, slime into nanites, and so much more. A lot of things the game's not going to even tell you, you just kind of have to throw things into it and see what comes out the other side. The refiner then is going to be with you pretty much for the rest of the game, so keep one on hand at all times because refining is the backbone of crafting, which is a fundamental part of the game in general. Alright, now if you're like me, I'm sure you guys are itching to finally take off in your ship, and you should be arriving at that point right about now in the tutorial. The last step is refueling the launch thrusters to take flight, and once you're stocked up, it's ready to take off for the first time. Now here's where we're gonna have to go over, I think, a few lessons if you're not used to flying in No Man's Sky. Now this game hasn't full Newtonian physics, so you're not going to be able to drift or strafe like you can in other space sims, but upgrades later will improve your maneuverability quite a bit. At first, you'll also find that the starter ship will feel a little bit sluggish and clunky, but enough to just get you going for now, and it'll make the upgrades later feel so much better. Atmosphere also really matters here. While you're close to the ground, you'll fly a lot slower, so it's useful to do that when you're scanning by hitting C or L3 plus R3 on controller to ping for points of interest. Icons like house symbols should pop up when you do that, where you'll find loot or nanites or missions, so get into the habit of doing that when you're flying low and looking for some really cool things to find. And since you're looking around, you might be curious about how you can look over your shoulder, to your left, to your right. To do that, you can hold left alt on PC or right stick on your controller for free look. You can even scan planets or scan objects mid-flight while in your cockpit by looking at them and pressing C or L3 plus R3 on your controller. If you prefer third person though, you can also go into your quick menu by hitting X again while you're in your ship and scrolling over to your camera options and selecting camera view, which will pop you into a third person view of your ship. It gives you a much wider perspective, but scanning in this mode will actually be quite a bit more difficult. When you're well done with looking around though, it's time to give yourself a little boost in speed. To do that, you can hold Shift on PC or Circle/B on controller to use your afterburner. You can also gain some altitude, like I said earlier, to increase your speed if you want to travel a greater distance across a planet's surface. This will get you going pretty quick, but if you want to go really fast, you'll have to use your pulse engine. This is going to require you go above atmosphere and hold spacebar on PC or L1 plus R1 or left bumper plus right bumper to engage the drive, at which point you should shoot off in one direction, blinding speed. Initially, since your ship is a little bit low level, you're only going to basically go in one direction, but as you upgrade your ship later, you will be able to slightly change your trajectory. If you want to make it a little bit easier to go to whatever waypoint the game is set for you, if you point your ship towards it before you hit your pulse drive, it will automatically navigate to it more quickly, so this is a great tip for you guys to get around a little bit faster. Now, if you do decide to wander off before you go to your next objective, you may need to find yourself some fuel, which is pretty easy in this game. If you drop out of pulse anywhere in the system, scan around for a little bit and look for a bunch of asteroids. If you find some, shoot some, and eventually you'll come out with some tritium, which you can use to refuel your ship's pulse drive by just hitting X like I showed you earlier, just like what we did for the spacesuit. You should also be able to find things like gold, silver, and platinum out here, which are pretty valuable and useful for crafting later on or for just getting more income, so you know where to find that now. Alright, now the game should be guiding you to a signal at another point on the planet that you were just on. Before you land, here's another pro tip. If you aim your ship's weapons on the ground and shoot them, you can actually harvest resources directly to your ship's inventory a little bit faster than you can with your base mining tool. So fire some rocks and trees and just see what happens. Now, when you're ready to land, just hit E wherever you like and look for some level ground. If it's telling you can't land, it may be that the ground is too steep or you're trying to land over water, which you won't be able to early on without water landing gear. Don't worry if it's a rough touchdown, landings are pretty second nature as you get going in the game. After a bit of exposition, you should also then be tasked with crafting your first terrain manipulator. Now this is more than just a digging tool. With it you can actually unearth the buried technology we were talking about earlier, which tends to be underground. And like I said, you can use it to dig yourself a hole to find shelter from storms, hide from adversaries, or even find yourself some underground cave systems. Something the game doesn't tell you about it is that you can actually use it to add terrain, flatten terrain, or even restore it to its original state if you don't want to keep falling the same hole over and over again if you've made a hole near your base. Speaking of which, it's time to build your first base. Now honestly, the base thing is probably something that could get its own video or even multiple videos. It's what I've personally spent the most time doing in this game and why I may not have progressed too much in some of the cool accessories that you may see some other people making guides are wearing. Anyway, don't overthink it. The purpose of this first building that you're going to make is just for a tutorial. It's a simple shelter that you need to progress a little bit in the game, so all it needs to be is a box with a roof. But if you want to go overboard, fine, go overboard, but you're going to be missing a lot of pieces that you're going to really want later on, so that's why I'm saying make it simple here just at this moment. I recommend starting with the platforms, but you can also start with walls to elevate whatever you're building above the ground to maybe give yourself a little bit more protection from, say, hostile animals or something, or if it's just something you want to do to make it look cool. You can cycle them through the parts after you've tried placing one by hitting Q and E on PC or L1 or R1 or left bumper and right bumper on controller. Pro tip though here, if the terrain's a bit awkward, you can enter free placement mode by hitting B on PC or by clicking L3 on controller. This makes aligning pieces just a little bit easier, and I think overall just building the base a lot easier. Another thing I like to do is to save planets that I really like by building a base on them and a teleporter. So when you're doing that and you're starting off, I recommend starting off small and giving yourself some room to expand later unless you're really set to do a big project. Next is to blend the aesthetics with the function. Even in the early game, it's fun to pick spots that inspire you. Maybe one that overlooks a valley or that's by a shoreline or a river. Build something that you like and then tuck in the functional modules organically. Next is to use the free look camera for precision. Building on uneven terrain is a bit troublesome, so use that free look to make things just a little bit easier and to get multiple views and vantage points to see how things are shaping up. Think of this first base then as a sandbox. You'll eventually outgrow it and build something better, but for now, you're just learning and experimenting. In the next part of the in-build guide, you should be building your construction research unit. And here is where you're going to spend your salvage data to unlock permanently things like your teleporter or different base components. While it might be tempting to use a bunch of salvage data right now to get a bunch of stuff, I recommend holding off and getting some really important stuff early on to make your life a little bit easier. Now here the guide should tell you to get yourself the teleporter and biofuel reactors alongside electrical wiring to connect everything. And that's great, but before you leave the planet, save up a little bit extra to get the solar panels and batteries because those are the ones that will basically keep your power on forever. Now once you're done, you could also rename your base by going back to your base computer and setting the name at the top. I like to name it to something more useful so that I can remember why I made the base in the first place. This is my first base on the save, so I want to name it First Landing. And you can also capture a screenshot to remind you what the location looks like and what your my crappy little base looks like for now. Later, it's gonna get a lot better. And another thing you probably won't know early on is that the anomaly, something that you will get very early on within the first couple of hours playing, is a location you can go to that serves as a social hub, a place to go do expeditions like I talked about in the beginning of the video, and as a place where you can get some extra cool upgrades for a bunch of different stuff, like a bunch of very cool parts that go beyond what's available from the research unit, including entire sets that aren't available from it. So be sure to check that out if you like base building. Alright, after you've been satisfied thoroughly by building your first base, it's time to launch off into space and travel to the nearest space station. Most star systems will have one of these that's functional, and you're going to want to make a stop there every time you jump into a new system just to take a look around. To get inside, you just have to approach the part that looks like an opening, and once you get close enough, there will be an automated landing sequence to take you in. Since launch, the space stations have gone over quite a few makeovers, and now there's a big variety of them, including some non-main faction ones that you can find in other systems, but I'll leave those for you to discover. Once you're inside, take some time to take a look around and familiarize yourself with the layout of one of these basic stations. But once you're ready, here you're going to need some cash, and since the upcoming objectives are going to require you buy some parts, a smart thing to do early on is to invest in some technology for your suit, either S or A class scanning modules specifically, to massively increase the units you're going to gain from scanning plants, minerals, and different creatures, turning exploration into a basically steady income flow. And when trading, remember that markets actually make a difference, so scanning for hot prices can make you a lot more units than just farming. Plus, talking properly to aliens, like learning words, prevents some accidental hostility and can earn you a few extra credits too. Another quick way to earn is to scan the planet's surface for either 2 or 3 star valuable items or objects, and raid abandoned buildings for some loot. Just be careful if you decide to steal eggs from the infested sites, because those creatures will kill you quick. Park your ship nearby if you're going to do that, for a good way to get away fast if you need to. While at stations, you'll also notice that there are boosted slots in your suit, ship, or even multi-tool. These actually give you extra performance boosts for whatever module you put in them. So swapping, depending on your activity, will give you a massive boost to, say, movement if you put a movement booster in there to give your tanks and recharge rate a nice healthy bump up. This is another one of those things I really wish I had known early game, because dang could it have helped when I needed to attack things or defend myself, but now you know that information and you're not going to suffer like I did. Another thing you want to do every time you're at a space station is look to purchase a new slot for your exosuit inventory or your technology modules. This is something you should just keep doing every time you visit a new space station, because you can only do it once at each space station. Each time you do it, you're gonna have to spend a little money though, so make sure you got a little bit of cash on hand. I wouldn't recommend doing it though for your multi-tool, because the cost just gets steeper as you add more slots, and it might be better just to save for a new multi-tool later on. But if you wanted to get some free upgrades, you could also go look for some signal boosters at planetary outposts, which will point you to some drop pods scattered across planetary surfaces. You'll have to fix up the pod a little bit, but it will give you a free suit slot afterward, and it's also worth noting that you can find these simply by flying close to the surface of a planet and scanning continually till you run across one, though it can be quite rare on some planets. Well, it's a bit beyond this guide. When you want to get some new multi-tools or ships, you can also find those at stations and outposts. Just look for S or A class ones before you get it, because anything less is kind of a waste of money, so you want to save up for those. Ships can also be salvaged from emergency distress signal charts, which you can purchase from the cartographer, which will lead you to crash ships. You just have to repair it to claim one, and even if you don't want it, you can actually salvage it at a space station to use the parts later on for making your own ship. And if you are one of those people who's played a while and you wanted to give a tip to get a free multi-tool, I searched for this for hours and I could not find any way to get a new free multi-tool anymore. It seems like this is something that's been removed from the game or has been made so incredibly rare that it's not a very consistent thing to guide a new player to. So if you run across a free one, good for you, but it's not something I can generally advise. And one last thing, because this just came out while I was making this new player guide, how do you make your very first Corvette? Well, that's pretty simple. All you gotta do is go on over to the larger part of the hangar. You can find the teleporter pads to it in the corner in the main area of any station, and it'll take you out to the Corvette creation kiosk. Now, you're gonna need a lot of money in order to start to make one of these. You'll need an assortment of basic parts, and once you do that, you'll have to assemble it on the floor with landing gear, modules, an access port, engines, a cockpit, and so forth. And as you play the game, you'll be able to find more parts to attach to your ship by looking for salvageable scrap on planets. You'll see them pop up when you're scanning various planets if you want to find those parts. You can barter for them as well if you want to get different ones, if you've already got a set of parts that you don't want. But this is by no means meant to be an extensive guide. This is definitely something more advanced and beyond the new player experience. I don't expect you to be able to do this early on, but just in case you wanted to know how to get started. At this point, you should be feeling quite accomplished. You've learned a lot about No Man's Sky, but there's still one big leap you've not made yet, and that's leaving your star system. In order to do that, the next big step is to craft your hyperdrive. And to do that, you're gonna follow your guide, where you're gonna have to buy some microprocessors at the local space station merchant and then install your hyperdrive on your ship. From there, it's time for you to jump out into space for the first time. By hitting M as you're out in space, you can open up your star map and select the location that you want to jump to. Now by default, you should get a dotted line that shows you the next star system closest to you that's going to lead you towards the center of the galaxy. Now this is tied to the story of the game, which is leading you to the center to discover a mystery. But you can actually go anywhere you want. And at this point, the universe is now open for you to explore. And if you're looking for some more structured stuff to play, you can also check out the expeditions that you'll find through the Anomaly. That's actually the update they just dropped recently. There's a new expedition called Voyagers, and that's the one I told you guys about at the beginning of the video, where you can earn a bunch of stuff, including getting your own medium-sized ship to fly around with friends or alone, depending on what you want to do, and you can customize it. It's super cool, and it's definitely worth coming back for or checking out if you're just getting the game now. But a lot of the rewards are timed for these community-wide events, and they're seasonal, so be sure to check it out while you still can. Again, link in the description if you've not gotten into the game just yet. But if you wanted to play with some friends, don't forget that No Man's Sky also supports seamless multiplayer on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, so you can jump in with friends straight from the menu and explore together. And if you don't have any friends playing right now, well, you can always head on over to my Armco community and find a few over there. Link down in the description. So if this guide helped you, or if I missed a tip that you think fellow travelers would want to know, please make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, if you liked the video, you know what to do, and I hope to see you in the next one.